Amistad, as many of you know, is the oldest and most storied imprint in mainstream publishing dedicated to the Black voices and Black authors, and we are committed, and we're hitting our 40th anniversary next year, which is an amazing thing, and I'm so excited. You'll be hearing much more about that, trust and believe. But I'm happy that you're here today to join us in conversation with one of your own, who's also now doing the other side of the work, and on the other side of the tiller, Miss Jeannine Cook. I'm going to read her very abbreviated bio. Jeannine Cook is the shopkeeper behind Harriet's, Ida's, and Josephine's bookshops, which celebrate women authors, artists, and activists. She has been featured in publications from the New York Times, the Hollywood Reporter, and from Forbes to Vogue. She is a mother, partner, and literary luminary, currently dreaming of Wangari's bookshop, global community building, and reading and writing more books. And you know where to follow Jeannine on all the socials. So we're going to talk a little bit about her debut novel, It's Me They Follow, which comes out in September, which we're very excited about. We're going to start with how this came to be and how we actually met, which was a tweet, I believe, in 2023 that asked if I wrote a memoir about having Harriet's bookshop, would anybody want to read it? And I slid into her DMs and said I would want to read it, but I actually would want to publish it. So we had a little conversation in the back in the DMs and talked about what that looked like, and he said, get an agent, come back to me, let them know that you have an interested publisher to talk to. What did you do after I said that?
I got an agent. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, of course, to Harper, to Amistad, to the team, to you all. I call y'all my bookshop cousins because we are family, whether we know each other or not. We do have similar roots, whether we know it or not. So I just appreciate the work. I know the work. I'm in the work. Somebody's in the bookshop right now, probably texting me. And so I just want to say, like, I get it. And then also to just say, you know, in terms of It's Me They Follow, here you have this story that's about this shopkeeper it'll feel familiar to you, the ones of you who run shops every day. But I had this idea, which was not this at all. I had this idea to sell a memoir about the story of Harriet's and Ida's and Josephine's and doing this work in places all around the world. And I was just like, you know, and also being this kid that was raised by this woman who was a librarian, and then she goes blind, and it's just like, how does this all, like, all these pieces, I've always thought that my real life felt like magical realism. And so I was thinking that was what I was going to sell in the marketplace. I thought I was gonna, like, write this memoir. I tweeted that out, like, I'm ready to do this memoir. Anybody, you know, want to read that? And, you know, like Abby said, she got back to me. But then she was just like, well, actually on the memoir, we might not. So then your heart goes into your stomach because you're like, oh man, I thought I had it, you know, I thought I had it worked out. And she had this, what I think is the even more impeccable idea. And at the time I was like scared, but you know, now here we are. But she was just like, well, what if you created this kind of fictional universe that takes place in your real bookshop? And I was like, that's interesting. Kind of like when I was down south, you know, we had another similar like event like this, and I was saying to them that it felt like she was asking me to create the X-Men of bookstores. And I was like, I could do that, you know? And so that's kind of where we landed. It's Me They Follow. That's kind of where it sparked.
And it wasn't, you know, I didn't have this idea just out of nowhere, and so I had the idea based on having watched you. You know, you started Harriet's in 2020 and been following the journey and seeing how you build community both within Philly and throughout the various other spaces for your bookshops, and how you talk to people. But then also you have an MFA from Drexel, like you're a writer, you've been writing in different spaces. It wasn't like you had never written. I said, go write this novel for me. We had a full-on conversation, but the idea of having sort of magical realism set in the space of our communities, the Black-centered storytelling, just was something I wanted to see, and I felt that you were someone who could take that and go. And I wasn't super prescriptive with you about it either. So I know it was a little scary. So what did you, I architect like high level and then said, go to.
Yeah.
What was that like for you to go back and then go do?
So have anybody in here heard of Harriet's? Have you heard of Harriet? Okay, good, all right. All right, so you kind of know the background a little bit of the shop. But I think once we did have that conversation, so first of all, my agent is Marie Brown, and if anyone knows who Marie Brown is, she's sacred, right? She is a library in many ways. I tell her she's my 80-plus-year-old best friend, and she was just like, Jeannine, just say yes, right? You have many stories inside of you, and that just having somebody championing you, who's seen this landscape, who knows this world, and to have her tell me like, you can do this, because I'd never written any, like, I wasn't a fiction writer. I was used to writing, even in my MFA program, I was writing creative nonfiction mostly. But Miss Marie was like, Jeannine, like, seriously, these opportunities don't come around all the time. Like, take the opportunity and run with it. And so having that kind of, what you gave me was freedom, right? Having the freedom to kind of play and to kind of like, you know, like, well, what does this mean? Really helped a lot. And so what the novel ends up being is 30 days before Harriet's bookshop opens, right? So it's a fictional story that takes place in this real bookshop. And you have this woman, the shopkeeper is the only name we give her. And it's read almost like an allegorical, almost like an oral story. So you have all these elements of oral storytelling. It starts with Once Upon a Time. People kind of have weird, strange names. There's a lot of like things that people say over and over and over again. The path with no beginning is worth beginning. The path with no beginning is worth beginning. It's worth it to walk it, to stomp it, to draft it, to strip it. You know, so there's all of this like oral storytelling embedded in here. And for 30 days, you walk with this shopkeeper who has this immense fear of touch. And she knows that in order to open a bookshop, there's no way you can continue to have that fear. You have to get over it. And so you follow her as she goes through those 30 days to see if she can do what it is that she sets out to do and how she does that.
You sat with that. So I know you got this question both from me and then a lot of people as you were coming through about how
that is not me.
Autobiographical this is, and how did you work through the pieces of your real story that go into it, and then extrapolating it for a larger role? Because in my ideal world, this expands, this universe expands.
Yeah. So what I appreciated about the shopkeeper, and one of the reasons that I gave her such a really like clear fear, was because then it was like, okay, well, that's not me, right? I know that's not me because I don't have that same fear. And the people who know me will know, like, well, that can't be Jeannine totally because she doesn't have that. But at the same time, you know, what I like about using touch as the metaphor is that touch can mean a lot of things, right? Touch is really about being able to be in deep connection with other people. And yes, she physically has a physical thing with the idea of touch, but Jeannine personally wanted to get over my own fear of like, you know, you as booksellers, as bookshop keepers, you know how many people you have to come into contact with, and you know whoever walks in that door, you got to give them everything you have, and you don't even know what that might be, right? And like people come in, I tell people this story all the time, like, you know, I had this doctor during COVID who came in and was just like, Jeannine, just give me a book, any book, I need something. And I was just like, you know how many books there are in the universe? And I was just like, now, you know, Dr. Dan, if I walked into the hospital and I told you, give me a pill, any pill, I need something, right, you would look at me like, right? You would be like, Jeannine? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna just give you any pill. And so I think that in many ways the shop has, that is what I needed to be prepared for before I could open those doors, is being prepared for the deep connection that it was gonna take to be in community with people, no matter who they were, whenever they walked in that door. So slightly different, but slightly similar. Now, our shopkeeper also is playing matchmaker. which I think I do, but I kind of, you know, like my track record ain't great. So some people, I'm like, yo, you really should talk to someone. So, and I do this in the shop. And sometimes matchmaker means like I'm matching people. You really need an editor, or you really need you just need somebody who runs a book club. You need a club, right? You need a writing partner. Right? So I'm playing matchmaker in all these ways, and also be like, you know who I think you might like. And so the shopkeeper in this book is like an accidental matchmaker who can't seem to find that same match for herself until one day someone named me walks into the door.
Let's talk about that romance aspect of the book. There's the romance, there's love for the shopkeeper. There's also, talk about the naming of me. Let's go there.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about who got what names and why. So why me?
Why me? I thought me was a really interesting name because there's a line in there where she says, I think like somebody's aunt says this to her, but everyone you love is really just a reflection of who you are. And I was just like, oh, so here you have this character who's like her love interest, and really what he's there to do is reflect her back to herself. So all of the things that you see in him, in me, are really things that she has a hard time seeing in herself, and he helps her with seeing it. And so I thought it was kind of cool. There's also this funny way in which when we're reading and we're saying me, it's as though she's also loving you as the reader. So it's like this kind of, it's a funny thing that's happening, I think.
I mentioned that I wanted it to have a magical realism, a little mystical element to that, and another part of why I wanted you to do this is because you talk about how Harriet spoke to you to create Harriet's Bookshop, to go into this work. A lot of you have talked this week about it's a calling to be a bookshop owner, to sell books, to
I say
be in
many
the
are
space.
called, but few are chosen when it comes to book selling. But yeah, go ahead.
But Harriet was calling you, and in this work, there have a lot of mystical, magical elements of someone calling and pairing up our two folks in there. What was that like to pull those elements into there as well? You're pulling a lot of different elements in there, but the magical realism element along with the romance.
Yeah. Well, because of like what I was saying to you, I feel often like my real life often feels like magic, right? The fact that you tweeted one day, "Hey, I'm ready to publish," and then you get the editor of Homicide that responds like, "Okay," like that feels like magic to me. That's not like that story feels like it's weighty. I agree with the call. I think that again from the book, she talks about like many people hear this call, feel this desire. You hear it all the time. People are like, man, I always wanted to open a bookstore. I always thought about this. And there's just but then there are the few people who cross the line and actually do that task. And then you have the people who do it over and over and over again for years, and commit to it for a lifetime. And it's quite something. In my work with Josephine's, I get to be in France, right? And in France, there's a whole different way that they see the bookseller. The bookseller is not considered just regular retail, right? The bookseller, the shopkeeper sits in a space that they call cultural heritage. And they treat you with high regard, high respect. If you come from a family that has a bookshop, you can pass that bookshop down to your family, right? There's all these other like protections for the bookseller in France that we don't necessarily have here in the United States, which are worth us looking into as we think about what we want our industry to look like in the future, right? What are people doing internationally that we could, think about, borrow, etc. In terms of Miss Harriet, I feel like I've been in a conversation with Miss Harriet since I was a little girl. I think that when you're a child that came from like kind of like a wild background. Like I said, my mom went blind when I was a little girl. My father was terminally ill. So I think I created this imaginary friend in Harriet and allowed her to speak to me. Now, you know, culturally, this is not uncommon, right? It's not uncommon for us in our culture to have conversations with our ancestors. It's not uncommon in our culture to feel deep connection and even like guidance from our ancestors. It's not something that, you know, is even, you know, it's not like I could say that in this room and people shake their head and they're like, yeah, of course, we know. But in many cultures around the world, like that same thing exists, right? Like that level of what we call magic that just lives with us every day. And so I think what the book does, it puts that magic into the everydayness of it all.
Powerful.
It sort of bleeds into another powerful element of both the book and your real life. And the real life for many of you in here is the community aspect, because it's a lot of community building. It's not just, I sell books. I feel like you're maintaining and trying to draw in and interact with the people in your community and create new readers, spread new stories. We'll talk, I'm sort of jumping into a whole other topic because, spoiler alert, the memoir is actually coming soon. We're going to talk some more about that as well. But what is that like to, you know, you played it out in the book, but what is the community building like right now? Because I also watch you, you're doing it on multiple fronts. It's a lot of different things. How does it feel to do that today?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things happening in this book. So I can't wait to talk to y'all when y'all read it because there's all these genre building things happening. But one thing that I talk about often is the idea that Sonia Sanchez early on she had a lot of wisdom for me. And one of the things she says to me is, Jeannine, you're never gonna do anything by yourself. Don't even try to do it alone. She was just like, if your mind starts telling you you're doing it by yourself, you're doing it wrong. You're not doing it, right? Like the work you do is rooted in tradition, and it's rooted in community. That's a part of that's the point of it.
Right.
The other thing is that, and so, now what shocked me was that you could build community literally anywhere you go. Like, I didn't realize that you could take, you know, that kind of like idea and take it to places where you might not know people, you might not know their language even, and that level of community is a love language that exists all over the world. And so that has been continuously like, wow. The other thing is, I say like the mothers, I call them the mothers, so Harriet and Ida and Josephine and Wangari, as I say that the mothers will meet you halfway, right? And what I mean by that is that sometimes like since we speak in this language of the call, you'll hear a call to do something, and I'm like, now how am I gonna do that, right? Like I don't speak, you want me to go to Paris, and I don't speak a lick of French, I've never even been to this place really. Like, you know, this is like a whole new front for me. How am I supposed to build a bookshop in 2 weeks, you know? And I get over there and I'm like, okay, just take one step. I was telling Abby earlier, I was like, I try to just do the task in front of me. So I got over there, you know, I got this scholarship to walk in Baldwin's footsteps. So I'm walking in the footsteps and I'm staying in an Airbnb. And I'm like, man, I really like this furniture. It'd be great for Josephine. And I texted the guy, like, yo, I really love your furniture, you know, where'd you get it? And he was just like, oh, I'm a furniture dealer, and you could, and I said, you know, I told him the idea about Josephine. Oh, you can use any of the furniture you want to use for Josephine. And so that's what I mean by the mothers meet you halfway. Like, if you go and just do your part, they do their part. That's what I've learned. And that's a part of the magic, and magical realism. I would say. That's also a part of the community. The community, we are everywhere. Like, regardless of what people have told us, we are everywhere. And people love us everywhere. We have cousins all over the world. Like I said, book shopkeepers were cousins all over the world. So if you find another one, you have a home, right? You literally have a home wherever you go because we have bookshops all over the world. And so, for instance, like even with the work that we're going to do next with Wangari in Nairobi, right? I think I'm going to, my father passed away last October in the middle of all this process. And so then my friends were like, okay, you really need to like take a beat. And they were like, you're gonna go to Nairobi. We're gonna send you blah, blah, blah. So I'm going with my homie to Nairobi, and then the LA fire starts. She gets stuck in LA, and now I'm in Nairobi by myself. And I'm like, what the? I didn't even want to do this really. You know, like just like I was in my own grief moment. So I get over there, I'm walking in the forest, I'm like, okay, still trying to like be about the mission, trying to listen to what I'm here to do. I see this little thing within the forest that looks like, I was like, okay, boom, that could be a bookshop. I seen it. I was like, I could see it in my mind's eye. That could totally be a bookshop. It's like right off the edge of a restaurant. So a few days later, I'm having like dinner with like some of her friends, because she still can't come. And I'm telling them this story like I'm telling y'all. And the lady sitting next to me says, I own that space. And she was like, yeah, you can use it for your Wangaris. And I was just like, see, they always meet you halfway, right? Like, and so like that thing, like take the next step, take the next step, take the next step.
I love that. That's a lesson for all of us in many different ways.
Yeah.
You're you're straddling. We've got her out talking about this book everywhere. We're still in edits on the book coming out next year. We've got her talking about that, and you're running a business. And as many of you here have talked about and know, that's just hard. It requires a lot of attention and creativity and strategy. How is that straddling going for you at this moment? And how do you navigate that? The multiple hats you're wearing.
Yeah, like back to that Sonia Sanchez advice. Like I don't do anything by myself, right? What I've learned from this process is like creating a book is you definitely don't do that by yourself, right? Like you're the writer, yes, but you have a squad, a team, many people. Like Abby wrote me one day, it was just like, always remember that I'm here and I am gonna push back, right? And it does take a certain personality to work with my personality, because I could be like, well, I wrote that and I don't think it should be pushed back, And she's just like, yeah, I know you wrote it and I know you don't think that, but I'm gonna still tell you what, like from a reader's perspective, what might be best. And then you have Alyssa, and we have our own thing going, because Alyssa's like, this is where you need to be, and this is what you gotta do. And then I'm like, well, what about blue markers and incense? And I'm just like throwing stuff at her all the time. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I want all my people to have incense. And she's just like, Jeannine, you don't have an endless budget. You can't just send incense around the world. So like things like this, and then Tara, so like I have all of these people who, it feels great to not be alone, and that's the same thing on the book selling side of it, is that I had to learn how to like let up off the control so that other people can shine in the space, right? Other people could come forward for the bookshops and do what they do very well in there. And so I don't do it by myself, nothing by myself. And so it does, people are often like, well, how are you doing all of that? And I'm like, I'm just doing the thing that's in front of me. And also I have many, many teams that I love working with.
I'm glad you gave Tara and Alyssa a shout out. Like one of the things I talk to when we're acquiring a book or working with a new author is telling them, like, yes, I want you to want to work with me. That would be fantastic. I have a vision for you, but also to think about the team and the imprint where you're going to be published. Because whether I'm there or not, you need to know that this is the book that your book sits here. There's a whole squad of people from the minute that the proposal comes in. I run and go, we sit at a meeting and we talk about these books that came in and why I'm excited about something. And so by the time I bought it, Alyssa and Tara already know this book is coming sometime in the future. People are getting acquainted with it. They're getting excited about it. They're already thinking about how they're going to sell it. How they're going to So the idea that there's so many people involved in the process, it's not just whoever you see front of the line, is important. And I think, I probably guess that that's one of the things you've learned in the process, but can you talk about what you have learned going to the other side of the aisle, the teller?
Yeah, I have a lot more just respect for the whole process and for the authors. Like sometimes it feels like on the bookseller side, like I feel like I get inundated with like, like, how you get so much mail? you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much mail and there's so many emails and it's just like, you know, author after author after author, publicist after publicist after publicist, and it's just like, I didn't realize until I got to the other side, like what they're doing, why they're doing it. Like when we were going through this whole Indie Next process, all that time, I had never realized that was really, really important for a new author. And so we would get all those requests from Indie Next, and I was like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like it just didn't occur to me how important it is for an author. I think I realized, so just like having a whole bunch more respect for the author and the author's team, I also realized how much sometimes authors think that just like giving you their book means like it's gonna magically sell. And you're like, dog. That is not how that works. You know what I mean? Like you have to have, if you don't have no engine behind it, if you don't have no creativity, right, no power behind what you're doing, like you're not just gonna throw it at me and expect me to do all the work. You know, like this is a partnership. And so thinking about that now that I'm on the other side, like what does it mean to be in partnership with the bookseller versus like, oh, you know, you serve me now, like make my book bestseller, go do it. You know, like it doesn't work like that. It really is a partnership, and it's not just like what's best for me, right? It's what's best for us in this partnership. And so I'm realizing it's just a lot more work from the author side than I understood to be happening.
Yeah. No, I think that's important for everyone. I think I say it to authors as they come into the business. One of the things we always say is like, you can be a writer. Yeah. Do you want to be a published author? That's also a different thing. Write whatever. Yeah. Write whatever you want. Let that come out. When you want to sell it, there's a market. There's a whole process that has to be discussed and thought about and considered and respected in a lot of different ways. I'm going to mention that if anyone has any questions, I'm going to give a couple of minutes
to ask you a question.
Sure.
So as an editor at Amistad, 40 years, you have this very dynamic company that's been built and this legacy. What do you see on the horizon? What would you like to see on the horizon? Like what are some of the trends that you're seeing? What are you looking for, etc.? You can take that in a lot of directions.
Trends, anyways, we've been joking because a trend for the last couple of years has been this thing called romantasy, which is interesting, and it has looked a very specific way, you know, in terms of the marketplace. What I am excited about is that the fact that there are still so many endless stories. One of the things my dying shame at coming up, in the last 20, 30 years, like 20 years ago, like, oh my God, another slavery book, oh my God, another slavery movie, another this. And it took, you know, getting smarter and wiser to understand why we need to revisit certain parts of our history, because it's in danger of being erased, because we need the touch points and the lessons to point us for where we're going and to be able to cope with where we are today, chart a path forward. So with Amistad, what I really appreciated, particularly as getting to be, I'm the 4th editorial director in its history. I took it very seriously to take on this role because, you know, we show up for Black storytelling, whether it's in vogue or not, whether other people see it as an opportunity or not, we're going to do it. But I like to find more creative ways to do it. Like we have our narrative nonfiction that tells history and sets a path and gives us context with a lot of different things. And then we have the fiction that can be my favorite, sneaky education, where you might not pick up that history book, but if you pick up a historical fiction book or you pick up Miss Me May Follow. There's every genre, but also lots of Philly history. Like, you know, by the way, Miss Marie Brown is also a Philly girl, so like this book is Philly. I was going to say call it a Philly John, but you know, you're going to come after me. But
you'll be like, oh what?
Oh, yeah. But I think what I hope to see is more intentionality with the kinds of stories. You know, I am constantly at the moment on the hunt for things that tie us or give us context to the Reconstruction era, because I very boldly feel that's we're an echo of that right now, and what can we learn to manage through for the future. So I think we're at a point where we don't have to be told that we have more stories. We just have to be able to show up with it.
And then one more for you before we open it. Just about the marketplace, right? And about the kind of stories, like how, okay, we went through that thing during COVID when all of a sudden it was like all black everything. Everybody wanted everything, all blackness, everything black, and people, thank you. You know, and then all of a sudden it was just like, don't even say it, you know, don't even mention it, get it off here. I mean, every day we see a different version of that where it's just like it's just like an undoing. So how do you navigate that tide?
By staying steady and, you know, looking to people, like even like a Marie or, you know, other editors and people who've been in the industry for decades. It's cyclical, right? There are people who you would have looked at them in 2020 and like, seen this. You know, write it, get your bag, do all the things. But also understand, don't be surprised, don't be disappointed even when the pendulum swings the other way. But you stay steady. You know, they discovered, you know, so many black lit in the 80s. And then it goes, 90s, oh my God, again, in the 2000s. Like, it's always a surprise that we want to show up for our stories, that we have stories that need to be told. So the way I handle it is, I feel Amistad is as best set up for success as possible. We have support, we stay steady. You can't get swayed by what's going on in the press or what's going on elsewhere even. Yeah, it's just staying confident that I'm a lot like you, because I think that's why we actually got along, where I'm just like, I trust that the road will rise to meet me. I trust the road will rise to meet Amistad. Our stories, I think the broader industry will have the course corrections it has, but we just stay steady.
Yeah, okay.
Does anyone have a question? I only have one.
Anyone talk here?
Okay.
Oh, thank you for that video you did too.
Good luck. We got you. Demetrius Frazier, Resist Booksellers of Petersburg, Virginia. You're surrounded by Black Bookstore Coalition, surrounded by National Black Bookstore,
National Association
National Association of Black Bookstores. I'm gonna get it eventually. People who really want to see Black bookstores be viable. Now that you've been on both sides, you've been in the author space and you've been in the bookstore space, what are some opportunities and things that we're missing and things that we can do better to be more viable because we got more bookstores coming?
This is such a good one, and I was just talking to Tara about it, so I'm glad you asked that, because I think there is a real space internationally for what we do. I think that folks don't really know what, you know, Black culture even looks like. They don't really get it. Like, they've been given it through very, very specific lenses. And so, like, I was doing some work in London I used to work for the American Friends Service Committee, so I was like developing curriculum for them. And so they sent me to London to work on curriculum, and so in the evening I go to like the local pub, and they're like, so, you know, tell me about Jerry Springer. And I was just like, what? Like, excuse me? You know, like, and they were like, aren't you a part of it? And I'm like, a part of what? Like, you know, and it was innocent. It wasn't on some like, you know, it was innocent. It was just like purely not having access to Black American culture, you know, from from a real lens. It was so specific what they get, and it's so teeny tiny, right? And so I was just asking Tara, I was like, man, like, you all over the world, even on the continent, there's not a lot of like our stories being filtered in these spaces. We got a whole world, you know, and I think that that's where there's a lot of like huge opportunity, and we're loved in ways that I think we might miss and not understand. And that there are many of our icons that have gone around the globe and made amazing amounts of change in places that you might not know, that you didn't know. Some people don't know Audre Lorde was in Berlin, you know, switching the game up for years. People don't necessarily know those stories, but there are people in Berlin, when you say Lorde, they're like, wow, you know, in many of the same ways that when we speak about Baker in Paris, people automatically, she's a common language. They don't know she lived in Philly and that she became Josephine Baker in Philadelphia, right? And that she was married to an actual baker, and that's how she got the last name, right? Like, these are things that people are like, you know? And so that part of it, I think, is a place for bridging and for also opening up the market.
Anyone else? Well, Jeannine, I want to thank
I'll go ahead. I just want to say I did reach out regarding your book, and one thing that took me by surprise was I seen Jeannine in this cowgirl outfit, and I was like, what they know about cowgirl outfits in Philly? What they know about the horses and all that? I was like, for real, she ain't no real cowboy Carter. Yeah, I'm in Texas. I said, I'm the real cowgirl around here. She ain't that real cowgirl. And then we just had a flashback, and I seen them put. I said, oh, we're gonna have to do this Texas cowgirl, this Philly cowgirl. And so I was like, I see them looking. I got so excited, and then I see the fact of matchmaking and the thing that the shopkeeper was going through, the bookseller, and I said, gosh, I think I wrote to somebody, I said, we was Fort Worth Weekly best place for singles to meet. I was saying, oh, now Jeannine, there she is again, we're gonna have to bring her. I said, what y'all have to do, what y'all need to do to get us together, and I said, they're working on it. But I want to ask you a question. How, I mean, what kind of, I know, I want a spoiler. I'm sorry.
What you want to know?
I have a spoiler, y'all. You can cover your ears, but we want someone. We're just getting a little bit of a spoiler, please. Just a little bit, because is there a relationship that led, did you get a relationship? I mean, excuse me, the main character get her relationship?
The shopkeeper?
Yes, yes.
You gotta read it.
Oh my God.
You gotta read it.
Okay, I'm over there.
You gotta read it.
I'm over
Does she
there
find
going
love?
through things, yeah, but.
She
So hopefully
but
we
love
can get
is-
you in Texas, because I'm ready for that
I would love to
cowboy
come
cowgirl.
there. Yeah, actually, I was talking to Alyssa about it, so we're making it happen. I mean, but Philly does have an urban cowboy thing, right? And that's how it happened, is that they started teaching us how to ride, because they said that we weren't, you know, in Philly, we weren't getting access to this part of our culture. So there's this guy named L-Dog, who in his organization, the Fletcher Street Riding Club, and that's who taught us that's how it taught me how to ride. And they brought the horses to the bookshop. So they're bringing the horses to the bookshop next week again, right? So we continue to combine it. We have people going from taking horseback riding from one bookshop to another for the bookstore crawl.
And they did a movie off of that too, I
That's
think.
Fletcher Street, yeah, that was their movie. And so urban riding is a part of the Philadelphia culture, and then, you know, supporting people like L-Dog, who he's almost 90 and has been teaching kids and families for you know, generations how to ride. He told, just in case anybody who rides, and I don't know if this is what he told me, he was like, Jeannine, when you get on the horse becomes an extension of who you are.
Oh yeah.
And that they feel you, so like they might, so he was like, see your horse start prancing, that's how you be prancing. And so yeah.
It's rodeo weekend in Texas, so I'm like, okay,
Oh, I
I'm
can't
gonna
wait
be
to
here,
come.
but since
Yeah.
Jeannine is gonna be here,
I want to
it's
come.
definitely
Yeah,
a
no,
reason.
I would love that. That would be great.
Another match being made. We love this. Again,
Match made in horses.
Jeannine, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Thank you to the consigliere team and at the restaurant and for having us, and thank you to you all.
Thank y'all.